In this live video, and yes, this is live, I'm going to be taking you through my story and journey overcoming social anxiety. Okay, I'm someone who really struggled with this. I had social anxiety around close friends, around my family, even going to dinner. It's like dinner time growing up. Oh no, the social anxiety would just stifle me. It would be insane. And I really deep dove into all this advice in terms of how to overcome it. I've tried everything, and what I'm going to take you through here are the most useful techniques that help me overcome it. I'm going to take you through my whole story and ultimately show you which ones temporarily work, which ones don't work, and which one really worked and caused permanent transformation. So watch this in the design order. Don't skip ahead. Every technique builds upon the previous one. It's very practical, so buckle your seatbelt, okay? And if you need extra help with this or would like to receive personalized feedback based on your current situation, if you struggle with social anxiety, make sure to apply for a free coaching call. I'll put the link here. You can also click the link below this video. You'll talk to one of my coaches. This is someone who I've trained and worked with, and they'll be able to pinpoint exactly the cause of your social anxiety and what you should do about it. So, that being said, when it comes to my own journey, my story, the first technique that really helped came from the good old TV show Friends. Right? Growing up, watching Friends, there was this one scene that really spoke to me. And guess what? This helped me tremendously when it comes to social anxiety because it went against the traditional approach, right? Traditional approach, and I'm sure you've heard this, I don't have to remind you of it, is, hey, just don't be anxious. I'm scared. Just don't be scared. Have you tried not being scared? Hey, you're anxious? Did you try just not being anxious? Right? What about if you just tell yourself, don't be anxious? And that just can temporarily work for some people, but it's not really healthy in the long run. And for me, it just never worked. Right? I tell myself, hey, don't be anxious. Don't be anxious. And I just never really resonated with that. So what really helped me was this specific scene in the TV show Friends where, you might have seen it, Ross is in the bathroom here on this date. And he has these leather pants and he just takes them off and can't get them back up. Right? So they're stuck and he's freaking out and he's putting all this powder on, still stuck. He's putting like cream on, just trying to bring the pants up. And it's just a nightmare situation. Right? You're like, oh God, if that was me on a date, oh, right? You just cringe within. And I remember seeing that scene and laughing. Why? Because it's comedy, right? You find that laughter in the cringe. And I was laughing at it and I paused for a second and said, well, wait a minute. This is interesting, right? Because I'm laughing at this and this is funny for me. However, for Ross, right, the character in the show, it's really not that funny, is it? Right? For him, that anxiety is very real. It's like a nightmare situation. He's like, oh no, the pants. And for me, I'm on my couch like, just laughing. And I asked myself, well, that's interesting. Why don't I take this approach to whenever I feel anxiety? Right? What if next time you feel anxious, wherever that may be, instead of experiencing it and viewing it from the Ross perspective, where it's the first person perspective, it's heavy, it takes over, what if you just zoomed out a bit, viewed yourself from a third person perspective, as if you were Ross in that TV show, and chuckled along? Try it out. For me, that changed a ton, and it was a much kinder approach than the just don't be anxious, loser. It was, every time I experienced some anxiety or fear, I just zoomed out. I'm like, well, what if my life was a sitcom? What if my life, this situation right here in this moment, was I was watching it on TV? Oh, and it just took so much of that heaviness and pressure off of me. I was like, I could actually laugh at myself. It didn't have that hold, the same hold that it usually has. Now, when I say this, by the way, a little key distinction, this doesn't mean dissociate. People are like, oh, dissociation, great advice. No. It doesn't mean like completely disconnect, don't experience it, and disown the experience. Of course not. It just means, hey, what about shifting perspectives? Right? Even if, let's just say it's an actually embarrassing situation, you're really embarrassed and people are laughing, why would you not join in on the laughter too? Right? If people are laughing at your own expense, I want some of that too. Hey, I'm going to laugh at my own expense too. Don't take yourself so seriously. Okay, and realize too, by the way, is another little side note, that we always tend to think, I want my life to be interesting. I want crazy stories to share, so on and so forth. And we tend to chase these glorious stories, and that's good. But these very embarrassing, cringy stories are just as good. They're just as fun. They're just as interesting, right? Guess what? Even if we take Ross here, how epic of a story is that in his life? Again, I know it's fictional, but let's just say he's hanging out with his friends after. He's like, oh, the craziest thing happened to me. I was in the bathroom and the pants thing. Makes for a great story. Okay, so that was the first thing that I started applying to my life. Anytime, I just felt that stifleness take over, I would zoom out and view myself through the lens of, hey, what if this was Ross? What if I was watching a sitcom? And it was extremely freeing, and it really helped take a lot of that hold that anxiety had on me away. Now, this is the first technique, okay, the Ross technique, and it can provide a tremendous amount of relief. However, what I then realized in my own journey is that it never truly got to the cause. And I also asked myself, well, do I want to be the person who is always, okay, let's be Ross now, let's be Ross now? And it's like, no. Okay, so I really reflected on this, and I started refining my knowledge when it comes to social anxiety, diving deeper down this rabbit hole, and I expanded it into a formula. Okay, it's a 3-step formula that I started applying everywhere, and I'd highly suggest writing this down. The formula goes action, trigger, release, repeat, which, by the way, this is how you know it's live. That was not the formula. Here's the formula. Scratch that. But that is a great formula when it comes to letting go. Look at that. Zooming out, Ross third-person perspective. Here's the formula. Embrace, exaggerate, laugh. That was the formula. Embrace, exaggerate, laugh. So what does that mean? Building on this Ross technique, instead of just zooming out and trying to view yourself third person and find it funny, what I started doing is, well, what about it actually works? And it comes down to this. Embrace, exaggerate, laugh. Where anytime you're in this anxious situation, number one, embrace it. Don't resist it. I'm sure you've heard the saying, whatever you resist persists. So don't resist it. That just makes it worse. Oh, I'm anxious. Oh no. And that's why a lot of that advice, like, just don't be anxious. Don't be anxious makes you resist it and just amplifies it. It compounds it. So number one, embrace it. I'm anxious. Yes. You can even take on this mindset where imagine you were raised in a world where anxiety was at the pinnacle, right? Currently in our society, everyone's trying to be happy, successful, fulfilled, enlightened, so on and so forth. What if you were born in a society where everyone was just trying to be anxious? And anxious was something like anxiety was celebrated. What would happen? As soon as you feel anxious, you're like, yes, I've made it. So it's removing that negative label and embracing it. That should be your reaction, by the way. Anytime you're anxious or afraid, yes. Ooh, a little anxiety. Yes, here we go. So embrace. From there, that eliminates the resistance. Exaggerate it. Make it almost cartoonish to the point where you eventually laugh at it. And when you're able to actually laugh at it, genuine laughter, the hold it has on you fades away. So that was the evolution of the Ross technique. And I'll take you into another story here. This is a client I was coaching many years ago in London, who was trying to improve his social skills, right? Just talking and networking to people. And we were out at an event, and he was just having a miserable time, right? And he came to me. He's like, Julien, I don't even think I can do this. I don't think I have it in me. I think I should just give up. And maybe this anxiety is something I just got to live with, right? If that's you, by the way, you're like, I'm just gonna live with it. No, you don't. There's an easy way out. It's very easy to go overcome this with the right tools and guidance. Okay, so he told me this, and I shared with him this formula. Embrace, exaggerate, laugh. So I said, number one, let's embrace this. Don't fight it, embrace it. You feel down, you even feel sad, you feel anxious, embrace the feelings. And what I want you to do is go network with some people over there. Go say hi to those 2 people over there. And the way I want you to say hi is following this formula, embrace, exaggerate, laugh. You're gonna go up and say, hey, let's just say his name is Timmy. Hey, my name's Timmy. And by embracing it, it's like, I'm very anxious. I'm so anxious to the point that I almost cried. And I have tears in my eyes. I'm just the saddest, most anxious person that ever existed. That's what I told him to say. And he went to say it. So notice, he's embracing it and then just exaggerating it, right? I'm the saddest person that ever existed. You've never met anyone as anxious as me. To the point where it's so ridiculous that it's very hard to not kind of chuckle at how crazy that is, right? Imagine someone comes up to you, it's like, I'm the saddest, most anxious person you've ever met. You're like, wait, what? So he came back, right? That lasted maybe like 20, 30 seconds, then came back a bit down. But there was a little hint of a smile after that, right? Even just someone giving you permission to feel what you feel, right? Me as a coach saying, hey, it's okay to feel anxious. That helps a ton, right? Versus you shouldn't be feeling that. Even, by the way, in terms of parenting, right? What does every child want to hear? Oh, you're sad, you should feel happy. You shouldn't feel sad. No, they don't want to hear that. They want someone to say, hey, you're feeling sad? That's okay. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, and I'm going to be with you right here as you feel it. That's what you want to hear. Give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling, right? So I gave him that permission. So he came back with a hint of a smile, and I said, okay, great. Go network with those people over there, but this time, you're going to say, I used to be the most anxious person alive, but I embraced, exaggerated my way out of it, and now I have a little bit of a smile going. And he went to say that to the next people. Then came back and he was kind of chuckling at it. And then wash, rinse, repeat, did it a few times, and he embraced, exaggerated, and laughed his way into an amazing mood and an amazing state and had a great time. Just following that formula. And you can apply this to everything, right? Say you run out of things to say in a conversation. What do people do? I ran out of things to say. Oh no, what do I say? Well, embrace, exaggerate, laugh. Tell the person, hey, I ran out of things to say. I should have watched more Julien videos. You're going to chuckle at that. And it takes, again, this whole pressure and seriousness and hold and just, gone, dissipated. Okay, so Ross technique followed by embrace, exaggerate, laugh. And I use this for a good amount of my journey. Okay, these two techniques really helped more than the whole discipline, so on and so forth. But the rabbit hole goes a lot deeper. Okay, now, because I know you resonate with this, I want to make sure that you are aware. If you go to this link, JulienMentoring.com, or click the link below this video, you can apply for a free coaching call. Okay, if you're like, you know what, anxiety's been running my life far too long, go to the link, book the call. It's free. There's really no excuse except for your own anxiety. Oh, but I'll have to talk to someone on the phone? You gotta get past that. Embrace and exaggerate your way past that. Ross your way into that. Just get the help you need. You'll talk to one of my trained coaches who knows everything that I teach. I work with them personally, and they'll be able to pinpoint where you're at in terms of these steps in your journey and what's the best piece of advice to apply to get to that next level. Okay? JulienMentoring.com. Now, I'm reading through the chat here. It's like, much love. Thank you. Cool. Someone's like, what about Bitcoin? Now, this honestly shows self-confidence, even when you say the opposite. Well, that's actually a great point, right? Funny enough, by embracing it and exaggerating it and just making it part of who you are, like showing you're comfortable with it, is a massive sign of confidence, right? It's the good old 8 Mile movie with Eminem, right? At the end of that movie, there's like a rap battle where they're rapping against each other. And the whole thing with rap battles is you try to diss the opponent, right? You make fun of the opponent. And the whole finale, not to spoil it, old movie, you should have seen it, is that Eminem, what does he do? He takes all the things that his opponent could say about him and says it first. That's it. And by him saying it, it just takes all the power away. There's nothing the opponent can really say at all, right? Funny enough, Ted Lasso kind of copied this in a recent season where it's like, what are you going to say back to this person? He just made fun of himself. If you show you're okay with something, it takes the power away. There's no longer anything anyone can prey on. Right? It's like, hey, here's all my weaknesses. Here's what's going on. Yep, embrace, exaggerate. I find it funny. It doesn't get to me. You become unstoppable and invincible. Okay, now, the next step is that I realized, although these work and they do provide temporary relief and can be extremely helpful, definitely use them. I still occasionally use them to this day. There was a deeper issue. And the deeper issue is that all of these techniques came after I was experiencing that social anxiety. Meaning, I'm anxious, now what? How do I cope with this? And one day I woke up and I was like, well, wait a minute. These are just coping mechanisms. What? I'm just coping with the anxiety. Actually, when you view it through that lens, you'll see a lot of the advice out here in this online world. It's a lot of coping, right? All these techniques is how to stop self-sabotaging, how to stop this. It's all these coping with failure problems. And I changed the approach to, instead of, okay, I have anxiety, what now? I shifted it around. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why do I have anxiety? Where does this come from? And this took me down an even deeper rabbit hole, where I was like, I'm just coping once I already have it. What if I get to the cause, the source of it, and I work on that, and then I just no longer have it? Instead of slapping on these Band-Aids, because that's what these techniques are, what if I got to the cause and I just didn't even need to slap those Band-Aids on anymore? And then it got me thinking, well, why is it that I feel anxious? And the first thing I did is I started taking a note of every situation that I found myself in where I experienced anxiety. And I suggest you do the same. Notice whenever it really kicks in, around what people, what environments, what time of day. Maybe you're around some people and a certain topic comes up and you're anxious. What is that little anxious voice, right? The way it manifests in your mind, what is it saying to you, right? Is it anxiety around what people think, around how you look, what you're saying, etc.? Like, what's the theme? And just take note. You really want to start communicating to this anxiety and getting to know it. And as I did this and ventured deeper into my own personal growth journey, I realized that a lot of the anxiety that I was experiencing had nothing to do with what's out here. It had nothing to do, funny enough, with the external. And I was like, well, that's interesting, right? If you take one of the biggest fears in the world, public speaking, fear of public speaking, people are scared, right? To the point where they feel like they're going to die. If you were to say, hey, come up on stage here and speak in front of a crowd, you literally feel like you're about to jump out of a plane and die. Well, think about it. Why is it that people experience such extreme fear? And I experienced this too. Are you actually going to die? Is your life actually at risk? Going up on stage, speaking in front of people, right? Majority of cases, no. It's not at risk. So you realize this fear isn't grounded or based in reality. Wait a minute. So if it's not based in reality, why am I experiencing it? And I realized that it didn't come from out there. It came from in here. And different people or situations, all that they did were triggering that anxiety to surface that was already in here. And that was the biggest shift for me. I was like, well, whoa. So this means I'm more often than not anxious. I'm just getting triggered. And that's a big one for you. You probably don't have social anxiety. You're just getting triggered. Now we hear this word triggered. You're like, well, what does triggered mean? Triggered is when something inside of you that you've suppressed or repressed, disowned ultimately, gets poked at and shoots up closer into the light of consciousness, to put it in simple terms. So let's take a classic example. You're growing up, you're in school, you're a kid, and you speak up in class. And as you do, let's just say some of your classmates chuckle for fun. Now, the way one kid might experience that or interpret that is that they're being shamed. It's like, whoa, the class is kind of laughing at me. Or maybe the teacher's like, hey, be quiet, keep it down, keep it down. The teacher is disapproving of me. And from a limited perspective as a kid, the classroom's the world, right? Growing up, I doubt you thought much beyond the classroom, right? At a very young age, you're like, the classroom is literally the entire world. If I don't fit in here, I don't fit in the world, right? Not fitting in the classroom is like not fitting into society. If I'm ostracized by society, I die. So what does it do to you in that moment? You're like, they're all laughing. I risk being kicked out of the classroom, not approved by the classroom. Your survival instinct kicks in and you literally feel like I'm going to die right now. And what do you do to survive, to cope? You might take the aspect that is expressive and get rid of that. You're like, let's never be expressive again. This is risking our survival. And the other thing you might do is let's avoid situations like this, where I ever have to speak up and have eyes on me, because as we see, if I do speak up, I could get kicked out of the classroom and I would die. And that happens at a very young age. And then you live your life that way, and that resistance and fear compounds. So what happens here as an adult, you might look at a situation realistically and be like, well, there's no danger here. Easy peasy. Public speak, easy peasy. But it triggers that original situation as a child in that classroom. And the same survival instinct kicks in as an adult. That's triggered. It's when something inside of you takes over and your response is disproportionate to reality. Now, understanding that, you can also now get why none of these coping techniques truly work in the long term, because you never address it. You're just trying to cope with the triggeredness This thing takes over and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? As opposed to, well, let's work on that so that nothing can poke at it anymore. And this is where letting go comes into play. Hey, if I'm able to actually go back and process all these experiences, these traumatic experiences that led to me disowning aspects of myself, that led to me feeling anxious and getting triggered in various situations, if I'm able to actually release that, now I'm free and nothing pokes at it. And now I'm actually living in alignment with reality where, hey, if a situation's not scary, I'm not, like my life's not at risk, I won't experience that same anxiety. And I started doing that. I started tracking every single time I got triggered and ultimately coming up with an entire process to just easily let go of it. And when you do, easy peasy. Okay, this works much better than the coping mechanisms. The other one, by the way, is trying to desensitize yourself to anxiety, right? With social anxiety challenges. That doesn't work in the long term either. It can give you some temporary results, but you have to keep doing it. So what's your strategy? As I always joke, are you going to be the old 80-year-old person like, hey, grandkids, Grandpa's got to go do his social anxiety challenges to be able to be charismatic. It's like, oh, that's terrible. No. You can still use social anxiety challenges to proactively trigger yourself and then let go. Yes, right? And that's where, hey, look at that. Look how I tied it together. The good old action, trigger, release, repeat formula comes into play. Action, get triggered, release it, and repeat it to the point where you just no longer get triggered. So realize that a lot of your anxiety isn't based in reality. It comes from unprocessed wounds within. And when you identify them, process them, let go of them, you are free. The day you're no longer triggered is the day you are free. Okay? And once more, if this speaks to you and you would like to learn more about what this system is, because trust me, when I see people like, overcoming anxiety is hard, I'm like, no, it's not. It only is if you're trying to do it on your own, right? Don't necessarily even do it like me. For me, it took way longer. Overcoming anxiety is so easy when you have the right tools and guidance. If you'd like to learn what those exact tools, what this whole process is, because it's very nuanced, go to this link, apply for a free call, ask your questions, get your feedback, and learn about it. But it doesn't have to be hard. It really doesn't. You don't have to keep relying on coping mechanisms, because that'll drain you in the long term as well. Just get it handled. And when you do, things get peachy, right? It's crazy how often this type of fear and anxiety holds us back. A lot of times in ways we aren't even aware of, right? There's the obvious ones. You're like, kind of scared to talk to strangers and my friends and putting myself out there. But in so many other areas, anxiety keeps you stuck, right? Let's just say there's an opportunity that opens up for you to become more externally successful or make more money. But you know that by doing so, there's more responsibility. People will be looking up to you. With status comes judgment, very key. So you know that judgment's coming, and unconsciously you might be like, well, if I succeed a little too much and I get judged, then that'll make me more anxious, so I'm going to not succeed as much. And people just stay low, stay stuck at the bottom, right? There was even someone, this is in Europe a few years ago, who was like, I really want to come to one of the live events you're doing. And this was a very affordable live event. It was $300. And I told him, like, well, do you have free time? Like he talked to me a couple of days before the event. I'm like, do you have free time in the next 2 days? He's like, yeah. And I said, well, can you really not think of a way to make $300 in a day or two? And this would apply for you, by the way. There's so many options and opportunities around you. It's so easy. And I asked him a bit about himself, and he's like, well, I know how to do massages. So I said, well, why don't tomorrow you go in the street and you offer people a little 5-minute neck massage for $10 to $15. Trust me, you walk out in the street, hey, neck massage, $10, 5 minutes. You could easily make $300. Easily. The only thing blocking you is your own anxiety. What will people think of me? And he actually did it. And he made 500 euros. And he came to the event. So what's blocking you really? That anxiety. Opportunities are everywhere. But then that anxiety will hijack your focus and create blind spots to the point where you can't even see them. Okay, an exercise I also give clients is the toothpick challenge. So think of it like this. Okay, here's the challenge. I give someone, all the clients a toothpick. And I say you have 30 minutes to go out in the real world and trade up. So what does that mean? You're going to take your toothpick and you're going to walk up to strangers and say, hey, what will you give me in exchange for this toothpick? You're not allowed to say it's a challenge. And you're not allowed to accept money. It has to be an object. So you can say, hey, what will you give me for this toothpick? And someone might be like, oh, here's a tissue. Here's a, go. Now you have a tissue. Go to the next person. What will you give me for this tissue? Here's a cigarette. Take the cigarette. Next person. What will you give me for this cigarette? You have 30 minutes. And then you have to come to your final object. And it is insane to see how people go from a toothpick all the way to coming back with a full pizza. Someone came back with a flower vase, right? An expensive one. Like, again, I'm guessing around 70, 80 bucks or so. Like not cheap. The things they come back with is insane in just 30 minutes. And what are you starting out with? A toothpick, which technically is negative value, right? It's not like someone's going to benefit from a toothpick. You're pretty much asking someone, hey, will you throw this away for me? So let's just say to a full pizza. What could you go from starting point, who you are now in your life, your resources, your competencies, to more? So that's a great exercise where you can see all these opportunities if I just put myself out there more. Put yourself out there. What do you have to lose? Nothing. Oh, but it's so scary. Well, that's where you learn how to let go of it. Okay? Even with blind spots, you can also think, what if someone other than me was transported in my body? Say someone who you look up to, transported in your body, and they're now you. They kind of wake up, it's like, oh, I'm this person. These are my surroundings. Would they do better than you? Would they move up in life? Would they stay stuck? No. Why would they do better than you? Is it because they're smarter? No. It's simply that they don't have the same conditioning that you have. And they will see things that you don't see. They'll see opportunities you don't see. They might not have the anxiety you have, and they'll take action where you're not taking action because that anxiety is holding you back. So we tend to always kind of downplay anxiety, a little anxious. No, it holds you back everywhere. Everywhere. And when you let go of it, life becomes so much more enjoyable. Trust me, back in the day, I couldn't do a live video like this. And once more, this is completely live, by the way. This is me flowing in the moment. It's not like there's pre-planned notes. I'm not reading off a teleprompter or anything. Can you imagine? It's like the teleprompter going really fast. I'm not reading off a teleprompter. I'm just improvising this in the moment. Here I am, speaking just whatever comes to mind. And I'm moving my hands and I'm winging it in the moment. And this is live. Could I do this in the past? No, I couldn't. And there's a night and day difference from old me. I remember even trying to memorize things to say because I was so anxious. I couldn't talk to people. So I'm like, if I say this word and this word and this word, and I'd practice giving myself little speeches in my room. I'm like, this are some good stories I can rely on if I run out of things to say, talking to my friends even. To, hey, all is good. I got this. No longer triggered. Feels so good. Can just be me. The freedom, the lightness. So effortless. Night and day. Don't stay stuck in that old way. There's an easy way out of it. Okay, once more. You want help? It's your choice. You can go to this link, apply for a free call, put your anxiety out of the way, get on the call, talk to one of my coaches, get some feedback. It's free. Or you can keep mucking about. Okay, well, I'm just going to keep maybe trying to tell myself to not be anxious. Maybe some more anxiety challenges. Yeah. But no. Get to the cause. Stop fiddling around with the effects. Eventually, you're going to have to get to the cause. Sooner the better. Right? And think of the opportunity cost. Every year that goes by where you don't get rid of this or address this, you're missing out on opportunities. Yes, there are an abundance of opportunities. That is true. But at the same time, there aren't. There are some opportunities that will only come to you once in a lifetime. And if you don't see them and snatch them, not good. Okay, so you know what to do. Links here. You can click it below this video and get some real honest feedback. Have someone guide you through and really show you what's at the cause, where this comes from, and give you an exact game plan on how to get rid of it for good. It is very, very easy. A lot of my clients have overcome this. I find it baffling how this is still this kind of mysterious thing online, right? Simply because a lot of this deeper advice just doesn't get as many views. But if it speaks to you, get on it. Okay? Now, let me see here. Someone's like, I remember being stifled and shy at a young age before I could talk. How can I find out what caused it? Well, that's a great question. A lot of people can't remember the first time. This is why I suggest book that free call, because it's not something I can just give you the answer to here. It's like, well, it's just this. It depends on your case, but I would need more information to then help you identify this, because there are also a lot of very common places where this comes from. So jump on the call, apply for a call. Okay. Let's see. Someone said, I just graduated. My parents are pressuring me. I want to start a YouTube chess channel coaching, how to handle the pressure. Well, that's the other thing, right? It's like if you put yourself out there, pressure comes with it. You can't be successful without pressure, without judgment. Right now, right, I'm putting this out, this is live. Some people are going to love it. Some people are like, oh, what is this? You see some comments, oh, what is this? Oh, like, that's going to happen. I'm going to be judged. You put yourself out there, you're inviting judgment. Now, not all judgment is negative. There's positive judgment and negative judgment, but it comes with the territory. And if you truly want to be great and stand out, it comes down to being authentic. And when you're authentic, what happens? People love you and people hate you. But few people just like you. You become more polarizing. To be successful, you got to be polarizing and lean into that authenticity. You want people to love you, not just like you. Right? It's the old saying, what's the easiest way to be invisible? Fit in with the crowd. Hey, if you want everyone to like you, what are you doing? You're fitting in with the crowd. You'll stay invisible. So you got to really lean into your own edge, but that will invite judgment and criticism. And if you aren't prepared to easily handle that, to not let it affect you, you're screwed. Who are you kidding? And you will self-sabotage like crazy, like stay small, or they'll get judged. No, the way to success is to stop caring what people think, but authentically through letting go. Not by telling yourself, I'm going to stop caring, by getting to the cause, processing it, and freeing yourself. Okay, so once more, you know what to do. Julien Mentoring, click the link below, apply for a free call, get the feedback. The choice is yours. Wallow in your anxiety or get to work. If this resonates and you click, I look very forward to seeing you on the other side. To everyone else, have a very anxious day. Until next time.